This is Peter Shaka, and this is my IPP presentation on working women and maternity leave. In my case, paternity leave. Let me put my baby down. I am a father of two, both are in college, but it's an interesting topic about being fair in the workplace for mothers or fathers having paid time off in our business sectors. In 1978, Jimmy Carter signed into law a Pregnancy Discrimination Act, which was an amendment to the Title VII Civil Rights Act of 1964. This is the first time in history that the federal law gave birth to a nationwide standard to protect against pregnancy discrimination in the workplace. The law is a huge step forward in providing fairness for women and for motherhood and for folks that need that time off to take care of their baby. So recent as March of this year, UPS was sued and went all the way to the Supreme Court by Miss Young, who was not accommodated a 20-pound restriction versus the other employees who have to lift up to 70 pounds. She felt because of her pregnancy, she wasn't accommodated correctly under this Act of 78, and she won her case going all the way to the Supreme Court. So it's a huge milestone in the protection of women's rights or parents' rights, as we'll see later, in the United States. So pregnancy today, because of this 1978 Act, gives authorities the method to penalize people that discriminate against pregnant women and empowers pregnant women in the workplace. It helps our U.S. culture to embrace pregnancy or pregnant women in the workplace and their contribution, their value, and the great asset that they are to a company. It helps to foster the idea that they should not be discriminated against. However, the EEOC has reported from 1992 to 2011, there's been an increase of 71% of complaints against employers not providing fair opportunity in the workplace for pregnant women, such as wanting to sit if their job required standing, wanting to sit on the job or take more breaks or carry a water bottle or other needs they felt necessary for their pregnancy, or they felt like they missed an opportunity, weren't hired, and perhaps were even pushed out of the organization. So while we have the 78 law, there's been some improvements. We still have a long way to go because this act is an act of not discriminating against. Unfortunately, in our modern globe, our modern world, we are the only developed country without a mandatory maternity law on the books. In the globe, there are actually 4 countries that don't have a mandatory paid maternity leave: United States, Swaziland, Lesotho, and Papua New Guinea. Swaziland and Lesotho are on the tip of South Africa. Papua New Guinea is above Australia next to Indonesia. And not to compare the greatness of the countries, but economic impact globally, world power globally. Why does the rest of the world have a national mandate of paid maternity leave or paternity leave when the United States of America, as great as we are, we don't? So it was very eye-opening to learn this during this presentation. There's several arguments why we shouldn't have a national mandate. 6 major arguments. The first one is that it's unfair for men and women choosing not to have kids. If a woman wants to have a kid, that's her choice, but it's not fair for men. But across the globe, we have different degrees of governments and their required compensation for paid paternity leave, maternity leave. And one particular is Sweden. They give 480 days. They require companies to provide 480 days of paid leave for a man or woman when there's a newborn or when there's a new child. So it is fair for men, and we'll see later, a lot of other companies in the States are adopting policies that include men, so it can be fair for men. It's very stressful if the man is the breadwinner, and he now has to provide for him and his wife, and or single dads, they need to provide for themselves. There's no other breadwinners, but if the wife or the mother is the primary breadwinner, it's an additional burden, regardless of who the primary caregiver is. Having time off of work, whether the man or the woman or either partner, either spouse, without pay, it's a huge burden. And as far as single dads, as we see going forward for single parents, or for a lot of states have adopted same-sex marriage, and so we're going to start to see more and more cases where it doesn't matter the gender. There's a new child at home, and someone needs to have time off for that child. Another argument is that because it is a choice, why should I pay? Both of my kids are away in college. I shouldn't have to pay for this. I didn't. I'm self-employed, and so why should I help foot the bill? But in fact, motherhood is a benefit of society. Our children are our future. Our children learn, our children grow, our children contribute. They become doctors, engineers, design patent holders, etc. So without children, there's no future. And so there's a huge benefit that it's a choice, but it's a choice good for the benefit of society. And without a paid leave, it forces some mothers who want kids to choose not to have kids because their career is more important. They can't afford time off of work. And so it's not fair. Another argument is that it will create a wage gap, or maybe some folks say, well, if there's a mandate, let's have a wage gap. If this mother is getting paid X per year, let's reduce her pay. So in the event that she has a baby, it all works out. There's compensation there. But it's an unfair argument because regardless of race, of gender, where you're from, how tall, how short, any kind of handicap you may have, if you are contributing, providing the same job and doing the same duties and tasks that someone else is doing, you should be compensated and valued the same. So if you have a week off of work because someone's sick or someone gets hurt, it shouldn't be any difference if you're having a baby, and you should not be penalized and have a different wage because of the potential of being out of work and not contributing for those number of weeks. So a wage gap could be, it's not even, I think, a point that can be argued. The fact is that women today make about 77 cents for every dollar that a man makes anyway. And they've also had some research where a woman over her career will suffer a 4% decrease in pay for having children, whereas a man who becomes a father is rewarded almost 6% more over his career. So a wage gap is not a fair argument. A burden on an employer that if Obama or whoever the president is, if this were to happen, is going to create a huge burden on an employer. It doesn't have to be as generous as some of the companies we'll see later, but perhaps it's a basic footing for required paid leave of absence. The Navy, when they implemented an 18-week paid leave of absence, they found that a high percentage of women came back to work. And when they came back to work, they saw the financial benefit the Navy did of not having to recruit new recruits and train new recruits. So we had a woman returning after 18 weeks, happy, trained, knowledgeable, and that was a financial benefit to the Navy. The California Center of Economic and Policy Research has reported that 91% of businesses that have a paid leave program, they report benefits to the company by allowing employees to have a paid leave of absence, regardless of the reason, one in particular being the pregnancy. In 1993, President Clinton signed into act the FMLA, Family Medical Leave Act, which would seem, well, that's the cure-all, fix-all for this maternity presentation. But it's 12 weeks off, and it could be good for a father. It could be good if so there's a death in the family, an emergency, but it's 12 weeks off as required under the act, but it's unpaid time off. And so then again, it becomes a financial burden on the husband, the wife, the male, the female, the partner, without that paid leave. And under the program, only 59% of the folks are eligible. It's not good for lower income families. A final argument is, we don't need a national mandate when a state or a city or a company can make their own policies. Well, you do, and the proof is in the pudding when it comes to California, who has a state-required mandate, and the companies there have taken it to the next level. And some of the companies on this list 1 through 10, Netflix being the most generous, will give you an unlimited amount of time off for 1 year. It could be a birth, it can be an adoption, it could be your husband, wife, partner, and then the list goes down. It talks about your caregiver is even one, and offering very generous time off for the father, paternity leave, not only maternity leave. For example, Facebook will give you 17 weeks off for a mother or father and a $4,000 baby bonus. And I think that they've come to realize that being generous like this, not all people will use that amount of time off, but it creates great company morale, and a lot of folks vote them year after year the best companies to work for. Leading by example, Yahoo, if they were on that list, would be number 11. And when the new CEO came in, Marissa Mayer, in 2012, she doubled the policy from 16 weeks to from 8 weeks to 16 weeks, and 8 weeks for fathers. But she only took a 2-week time off because she was new and she wanted to make sure she was doing her job, and it was a working two-week off. Well, next month she's going to have twins, and she's made it publicly known that she's only going to have another 2 weeks off, which is also working. But it's sending a mixed message. While they're being generous and they're being, very, very aggressive in their policy for paid time off, she's only taking 2 weeks. So if I was below her, how would I feel comfortable taking more time off as a father, as a caregiver, as a partner, if my boss is only taking off, 2 weeks? So when you lead by example, you should do it through actions and not just policies on the books. But it's good to have that. It's just they need to improve upon that. So, in summary, we know that when someone's out of work and they come back, recharge, refresh, it's good. It's good for productivity. It's good for morale. It's good for company morale. Women, if they're pregnant at work, are providing the same knowledge and the same contributions that they would if they were pregnant or not, and allowing that time off for the family, for the child, is very beneficial. And we've shown that it doesn't have to be a financial burden for companies. And if the rest of the world's on board, why are we not on board in the United States? That is my presentation. These are my references, a couple through the Eastern New Mexico University peer-reviewed publications, and some others found on the internet. So thank you for your time. And I don't really have a baby, but for the purpose of the presentation, this is my ending. Thank you.